This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to the Human-Animal Connection Show, where we believe we can communicate with all animals. Join us as we explore the 33 principles and healing methods of the human-animal connection. As animal lovers, we know that you share our commitment to making the world a kinder place for all creatures. Together, let's embrace the transformative healing power of the human-animal connection.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Human-Animal Connection Show. I'm your most fortunate host, Michael Overly, and I'm with Jeannie Joseph. Jeannie, we got some great things to talk today. Hold on.
Yeah, I knew what you meant.
So, yeah.
So we're talking about connectivity and belonging, the healing power of connection. So, there's a great quote from Chief Seattle, which I have to read. It says, "All things share the same breath, the beast, the tree, the man. The air shares its spirit with all that it supports." I just feel that. That's right. Such a nice feeling.
I can go take a nap now.
I know. I start my day looking at the clouds. I go out and look at the clouds, and it's just a reminder. It's just, everything continues, like we think of things disappearing, coming and going, but there's something in addition to the coming and going of a lot of things. There's something also that remains, and that's tuning into that is really valuable to us. So anyway, that's just a little bit of the human animal connection philosophy for you, and how that relates to connectivity is realizing our connection with all that is the nature, the clouds, the sun, the sky, the moon, the earth, the water, the animals, all of that. When we have that perspective of being connected, I think it helps to ease some of that existential angst that we humans have, that feeling of being alone and not belonging to anything, and where's our tribe and where are my people, all that stuff that we humans go through, which is part of the human condition. But animals do a little bit better with that because they have that innate sense of connectivity. And so we can learn from them. Like Aristotle said that man is a social animal. But there's a huge range. Humans have different social needs. And one of the things we talk about in the human-animal connection is the fact, Bailey, thank you for joining the conversation. Yes. That animals have different levels of needs. Like it's not a given that, okay, Bailey, you're okay. It's not a given that all animals want to be connected with other animals. There's a man on the other side of the door doing some work, and that's what Bailey is responding to. So he's doing his work as a dog, and there goes Lulu coming out from under the desk. Yeah, but anyway, what I was saying is that animals have there's a range. And it's important if you have an animal to understand, is your dog or horse or cat or whatever an introvert or an extrovert? And Michael, where would you say you are on that spectrum of introvert and extrovert? Because we all have both, but where do you kind of fall? Like, let's put it this way. My definition of an introvert is someone who, when they're stressed, they recharge by solo activity. So that could be taking a shower, taking a walk, reading a book, cooking, doing something that is really where they're just, there's a lot less mental stimulation from another person or people and more just kind of internal state. So introverts recharge their battery with quietness, with alone time. Extroverts, on the other hand, if they're feeling a little down or stressed, they need to call someone. They need to go out. They need to do things. They need to go have a drink in a bar, not at home. They want to go out and be with people. So that's how they recharge their battery. And it's the same thing with animals. You could have a dog that's an extrovert, gets so much, just take me for a walk, let me meet new people. Therapy dogs that just want to go and meet a bunch of kids, that's an extrovert dog. An introvert dog may prefer just being at home with their person. They don't necessarily need to go out and meet new people. But that extrovert, the UPS man comes, yay, let's go meet the guy, let's go see the delivery guy. But an introvert is going to have a lot more reactivity. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely the introvert.
Yeah.
Situationally, I can be extroverted, but I'm more an introvert. And, makes sense that Indigo is as well. She sees a delivery guy and she wants to chase him off or eat him.
Right.
So we're not going to go meet the delivery guy.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the same thing with me. I'm an introvert and I've developed the ability to be an extrovert because I teach, I'm an educator, so I have to do it, but it's not my natural domain. And so I enjoy it briefly, but then it makes me tired. Like a lot of people, I know a lot of speakers, they get energy from going out and entertaining a crowd and getting all that energy from the crowd. And I need a nap afterwards, So, it's important to understand your dog, your unique dog in terms of whether or not they're an extrovert or an introvert. So you don't want to add a lot of stress to an introvert dog by, dragging them through crowds and meeting a lot of new people. So they might be fine with their tribe, the people that they know, the friends and family that come regularly or whatever, may be part of their inner circle, but their inner circle is smaller.
As we talk about the introvert and extrovert, we can both be situationally extroverted, but we're both introverted. I always thought of myself the other way, but I was seeking something else, right? So I was putting myself out in a way that wasn't natural.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm naturally, I need quiet, I need peace,
right.
I need, solitude at times. Yeah. So,
that's really important to understand that about ourselves, and then to understand about the animals that share our lives. And if you have more than one animal, you might find one's more on one side and one's more on another side. But there's a good chance that if you rescued or adopted an animal, that you chose one that has a similar temperament. My Sophia is like myself. She is basically an introvert, but she can rise to the occasion, do her therapy work, and for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then she's done. She can't wait to go back to the car. I mean, when we get there to the school, she can't wait to get out of the car to go see all the kids and get all the love and all the treats. And then after 45 minutes or an hour, she's ready to go back in that car and be quiet and not be touched by everyone. So we have a rhythm too in our introversion and extroversion. Many of us have learned to adapt and do the one that's not as easy for us, but we've got to remember that our natural style is the one we need to go to when we need to recharge and when there's too much stress. Yeah,
absolutely. So I wanted to ask you about social healing in humans and animals.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. When I was doing work with soldiers with PTSD, one of the things that I discovered is, it's a very modern phenomenon to sit with one therapist in a room with the door closed. You know what I mean? That's only since Freud or whatever, about 100 or 200 years of that kind of treatment. But in the old days, the native tribes, like the Polynesians, when they went off to war, before they would go back to their family, they would spend some time decompressing. They would, before they rejoined the families after they had been at war, they would sit around and heal and, just take some time to decompress. So working with that idea, I really recognize that working with PTSD, although there's definitely a need for individual counseling, I'm not saying that there isn't, but there's a level of healing that occurs in a social context that doesn't occur when you're sitting and talking to one person. So using the group momentum and energy was a big part of my program called Act Resilient, where I worked with over 4,000 service members with PTSD. And this was a key concept, was the notion of the group healing and the group energy supporting the person and giving room for the person to really heal, and all of the things that happen in connectivity that really accelerates healing. And it's the same thing with the dogs. When you have some shelters, just a few have a wonderful program where they allow playtime with the dogs, where the dogs can be together, hopefully organized by group, like play styles, like the gentle and dainty dogs are not with the rough and rowdy ones, but assuming that you have some behavioral differences separating by groups, then it is incredibly valuable for dogs to play with each other and to be with each other and to learn from each other and to communicate with each other in ways that dogs do. And this is what really helps shelter dogs lower stress. So 20 minutes of dog playtime, dog on dog playtime, is equivalent to a 3-hour walk in terms of burning the calories. And because it's not just the physicality of playing, even if they're not playing rough, it's still just reading each other's behaviors, watching the signals, communicating with each other the way they do, that really helps balance the brain. So the notion of healing, yes, there's a place for one-on-one healing, not saying there isn't, but there's also a place for this social healing, this ability of being with your tribe or your group, your species, and just hanging out and being together. And we see that humans clustering and sporting events or different things, we see that happening. And it's really important for many animals, not all animals have the same needs for it, but many animals do. And so it's wonderful if you have the opportunity to have a safe playgroup. And dog parks are not always safe. So we hope that taking a dog to a dog park is going to be a positive experience, but it isn't always, because a lot of dogs there have issues. They're not balanced. And so the dogs can get scared. So the benefits of the dog park sometimes are not as, well, it depends on the dog park. So some are wonderful and peaceful and playful and safe, and others are intimidating and can set a dog backwards. So you really need to evaluate the dog park in general, but also the specific time that you go, who else is there. If there's a dog that's really reactive, it could not be so great for your dog. But if you have a safe situation for dogs to play, it's a wonderful thing. And this is a big part of our vision of healing for shelters, is to have every shelter have people trained in running how to work a safe and happy play group for dogs. And at our shelter, the one that I volunteer at here in Tucson, they get out 200 to 300 dogs a day in play groups, because they can have sometimes 10, 15, 20 dogs that are well matched in a play group together. And it's so good. Dogs get exercise, they get social connection, they get their minds balanced as well as their bodies.
Yeah, that's great. I think most shelters don't do that.
I know most don't have the time, the space, the resources, and the training.
Mm-hmm.
So it's completely understandable. We wouldn't advocate for just throwing dogs into a yard together without people trained to evaluate dog behavior. But in the future, there's a group called Dogs Playing for Life. I mention them because I love them. They're not the only one, but they have beautiful, beautiful understanding of dog play behavior. And they make 4 categories of play, from the gentle and dainty to the rough and rowdy, which are like the wrestlers, the Greco-Romans that are like, they're on 2 legs and they're wrestling and they're making a lot of noise and having a great time. There's no anger or aggression in it. It's just play. And chase dogs that like the prey, chase and play. I forget what all the categories are, but they have 4 categories that they look at. And it's really very, very valuable to make sure that the experience is good by not mixing gentle and dainty with rough and rowdy, because that wouldn't be any fun.
And yeah, my comment was not a criticism on shelters.
Oh, no.
They're typically all underserved in some form, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. They don't have the resources. But in the future, hopefully when the public understands this, there's, more willingness to fund this. And, it starts at every level. It starts from the volunteers saying, hey, we need this. It starts from the donors saying, hey, we support this. It starts from the shelter staff saying, hey, this is a value. So I'm always trying to educate people about the value of this. So even if we can't do it overnight, in the future, I hope that every shelter could have something like this to the best of their ability.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So let's go out of the shelter scene, out of the dog park. And I want to use maybe Indigo as an example about making a good dog introduction.
Yes.
So she's very leash reactive and dog reactive. And if she doesn't already know the dog, then she's like, So what can we do in a situation like that?
Yes. So there are a lot of factors that go into a good introduction, and a few factors that go into a really bad one where things don't go well and the humans give up or the dogs get hurt, which is even worse. But so hopefully the goal is to have safe and happy introductions. And there are a lot of steps that we want to consider. So I won't go through them all, but I just want to go through a couple of the major ones. So the first thing to recognize, if you mentioned Indigo. So in the leash situation, leashes are really problematic because they're not natural to dogs. And of course, we have to have them because the laws say we do. But the problem is that on a leash, the dog doesn't feel the same freedom to move the way they want to move. When you watch dogs meeting each other, there's a whole dance that goes on. Sniff the front, sniff the back, I sniff you, you sniff me. There's a whole little dance. And when it goes well, it's very brief and simple and easy and well done, right? But when it doesn't go bad, like on a leash where they can't feel like they can move the way they need to move, they get the stress response, and then things can go haywire very quickly. quickly, and you see those, kind of tangle situations. So the first thing is just to understand that they need the freedom to move in ways that are natural, because otherwise, if they can't flee, then they will fight. And so we want to always make sure the dog has a feeling of, where can I move away? If they don't feel like they can get away, they're going to get stressed. And that's when we can see that more of that fighting style, that rise in aggression, not necessarily vicious, or doesn't have to result in a bite, but it could result in some tension and some growling, lunging behavior, things that we want to pay attention to. So as humans, dogs are in our lives. We have to really take good care to make sure that we understand dog social etiquette and the process that dogs have to go through. So, and one of the things, this is so important, because shelter dogs, a lot of shelters make you bring your dog to meet the new dog, but the new dog you're meeting is maybe in a stressed from being in the shelter environment, or your dog may be stressed from visiting the shelter environment. The introduction goes terribly. The shelter or the person says, no way, I can't work. This isn't going to work between me and my dog. And usually it's often a bad introduction. I've seen so many of these go wrong, and it's hard because I wasn't in a position to intervene as a volunteer. You know what I mean? The staff doesn't necessarily want to hear my opinion, unfortunately. So an ideal situation is if there is a barrier, like a chain link fence, where the dogs can see each other, sniff each other, but they have the freedom to move towards or away from each other, so that they know that they have the freedom of choice. If that sniff, look, and move towards and away goes smoothly, then we can go the next step and have a situation where there isn't a barrier between them. So that isn't always possible. I'm just saying that that's an ideal scenario. Is like when we often have foster dogs here or visiting dogs here. So they'll meet through our chain link fence first, the barrier, the gate, before we put them in the same physical space. So with the humans, it's very important that we're calm, because if we start stressing, oh my God, there's going to be this is tense. Oh God, the dogs are going to feel it. And our anxiety or fear or concern is going to go right to that dog, and it's going to accelerate theirs. So the calmer we are, the more we give them room to have their own experience, to make their own choice. And dogs know innately, this is a balanced dog, this is safe, or this is not a balanced dog, it's not safe. So if they're telling you that this dog is not safe, they're right. There was one day I had the opportunity to observe a dogs playing for life training at our shelter, and they were going, knowingly bringing in a very challenging dog, a dog that had to be muzzled, only could be walked by staff, had a record, all this other stuff. A challenging dog that was not getting out because only staff could walk this dog. We have 500 dogs at our shelter right now, not enough staff to walk these dogs. And so we had 3 very balanced dogs in the yard. We have a catch pen, which is, so there's a barrier between them, but they're inside. So they're inside this little interior fenced area before they go into the big play area. So all the dogs can see, sniff, smell, and feel the incoming dog. So what was interesting was, in order to know whether it was safe to bring the new dog with the muzzle, the challenging dog, we'll call it a purple dot dog, because that's what we call these dogs. We have a color code for their behavior. So the purple dot dog with the muzzle in the catch cage, the other dogs position themselves in a triangle at the 3 corners of the yard on the ground low, watching the new dog coming in. So this was an interesting sign. This said, okay, there's they can sense that this is an imbalanced dog, but they weren't freaking out. They were calm enough, and they were just observant, but had the 3 positions, almost like if they had to gang up, they could, they could go from very quickly from that position. So it told us, okay, it's an imbalanced dog, but it's safe enough to let the dog come in. And so by watching the reactions of the other dogs tells us a lot about the incoming dog. So this is why it's so important to get very, very observant. And we never want to discourage a dog from growling, because growling, if we make them bad for growling, they're going to go to biting right away. They'll skip the growling stage. But the growling tells the other dog, hey, I'm feeling uncomfortable. And so the human and the dog can make an adjustment. And a healthy dog will make that adjustment. Now, we're fostering a purple dog right now from the shelter, and she has very poor social skills, and meaning she doesn't read other dogs' body language clearly. So I think we're going to talk about this more in the next episode, but it's very interesting because we have to sometimes intervene. And the way and she's a very sensitive dog. She can't be heavily corrected or she will flip. And so we have to very, very gently insert with we sometimes have to get in between, and then it's peaceful. It's just the dog that's a little bit more vulnerable says, okay, I have a person in between me and the other dog. And it's just, we call it fancy footwork by using our bodies. So I'm not correcting the purple dot dog. I'm just creating a little barrier. Now, you wouldn't do that in a violent situation, of course. If a dog's were about to bite, you're not going to get anywhere in between that. But this is just a situation of one dog not knowing how to read other dogs' behaviors. So me being a bigger person than the dog, my just physically being in between the two is enough to give her, oh, back off. So that's what she needs to learn without me doing. And now what's beginning to happen is she's getting better, not perfect, but she's improved on that. And now the other dogs are feeling safer with her. So there's less panic running away from her. So it's a process, it's really very much about how accurately is the human observing the warning signals, the behaviors that say this is comfortable or this is not comfortable.
People are the same way.
Right, exactly. It's just we don't have umpires to step in and say, okay, just step back, just back off a little, give them some space. Let's be quiet for a minute. We'll resettle and then we can talk again. Can you imagine if we had that?
I'm wondering, that's maybe a new industry to start.
Right. Visiting umpires. Yeah.
Hey, let's take a quick break. And I know we've got some more great stuff to talk about.
Hey friends, if you like what you're hearing and want to learn more, check out Dr. Joseph's book, The Human-Animal Connection, Deepening Relationships with Animals and Ourselves. Or visit the website, thehumananimalconnection.org, to book an online consultation. Thank you for loving animals. Now back to the show.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. The Human Animal Connection Show. I started to say my next question before I had finished the introduction.
Getting ahead of yourself there.
I do it. I'm tripping over myself badly today.
Okay.
So I frequently tell people that like Indigo is smarter than I am.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, intuitively and instinctively like that. But other ways as well that I want to admit on the show here. But
okay.
So you talk about dogs being social geniuses, and how they can read us like a book. Now, not all of them, right?
Right.
But tell me more about that.
Dogs have this amazing ability to notice, observe our emotions, our energy, our moods. And if you're living with a dog, you've probably seen this, that if you get a little stressed, they are aware of it. They don't know what to do about it, but they're aware of it. Now, dogs that are specially trained are very, very good at this. But what's interesting, what I've seen in the shelters is about 20% of dogs naturally are just like superly good readers without any training at all. Other dogs can be trained to be more observant, but there have been some interesting studies on the science side with empathy in dogs. And what they mean by empathy is not just that the dogs can sense distress, but can choose to help. So the study was they had a person that the dog could see, and the person in like a little room with the window so the dog could see their person. And the person would either sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, or they would cry or pretend to cry, right? And that's signs of crying distress. And then they would observe whether or not the dog would go attempt to open the door and go and comfort their person. So these are people who have, their dog. So it's already a relationship built in. I think they might have done, I can't remember if they did the study with people who didn't know the dogs too. Like, would the dogs respond if they didn't know the person, if it wasn't their person? I don't, forgive me for not remembering. But anyway, the study was very interesting. And what they showed is that if the dog could easily open the door and get to the person and comfort them, their stress level was lower. But if they couldn't get that door open, couldn't navigate that door, and they knew that their person was in distress, they went into deep distress. They went into deep stress. So it was very painful for them to notice that their person was suffering without being able to have access and give comfort. So I think it's a really interesting study to see this in dogs. This is a very amazing thing that dogs are so good at reading our behavior. And dogs who have not been traumatized are excellent readers of of other dogs' behavior. They read them, like I mentioned, that the story about the dogs in the shelter, reading that incoming dog in a second. I mean, this dog hadn't even entered yet. This dog was still getting the leash sorted out and whatever. And they just knew, okay, let's get down low. It's okay, but it's not, we got to be vigilant. So they were in a good state, but a vigilant state. So dogs that are good at this are really good at reading people's behaviors. And these are dogs that could be easily trained to be emotional support animals. So, for example, when I work with veterans, one of the things I do is try to pair them with a shelter dog that is a good emotion reader, that cares about this person's feelings, and they can learn to alert. Like, so Sophia, my dog, if I'm getting stressy, she will notice it right away. Now, whether or not I notice that she's noticing, that's up to me. You know what I mean? Like, she's not necessarily going to come over and interrupt me, although she has at times, but she will let me know that I am moving too quickly. I'm getting a little too edgy. I'm late, running late. And she doesn't like that energy. It's not comfortable for her. And I go, you know what? You're right. I think I'm going to slow down just a little bit. If I'm 1 minute later, it's going to be okay. And what's interesting is Lulu, the dog that we're fostering, the purple dot dog, who has a lot of issues. Twice she's, well, let me just tell you about PTSD trained dogs. They can learn to wake up their person from a nightmare. So if a person's having a nightmare, they'll wake them up. Lulu has done that to me twice. So she sleeps in the bed with me, and only twice has she woken me, like, you know, come over, licked me, whatever, woken me up. And both times where I was having a nightmare. And I was really grateful to see that, and very impressed, you know, because here's this dog that is not, you know, had her scorecard on behavior is like it's 10, 12 pages long from the shelter of all her problems. But then you see something so amazingly, profoundly sensitive and powerful as being able to wake up a person from a nightmare. And she's known me for only like 10 days, you know, so the fact that she can do this is pretty impressive. So you just never know what a dog's abilities are. I mean, some dogs will naturally, without any training at all, alert their owner if there's an illness. Like, I'm going to go do a session today with a dog. The husband, unfortunately, is dying of cancer, and the dog is very depressed and not drinking water, and I mean, to the point of concern. So we're going to do a session to see if we can help the dog let go of some of the dog's grief, because the dog is very attached to the person who's dying. So yeah. Wow, so we'll see if
amazing
we can,
work.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I hope it goes well. I think it will. Yeah,
it will. I mean, it'll be what it is, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I know we'll get some benefit by just helping the dog to let go of some of the sadness and the confusion, because dogs don't understand, why is this person sick? You know, that they don't have a diagnosis that they, you know, that there's just, oh my God, my person is not doing good. It's scary and sad. And I think that his outcome is not good. And I think the dog senses that. Mm-hmm. So I have to have a little talk with the dog and let the dog know that yes, it's true that this is happening, but it isn't something that the dog can fix or has to take on as a burden. So I think it's really important that people, you know, as we're talking about connectivity and belonging, and it's important to recognize that different dogs have different needs for social connection, whether that be social connection with people, besides the person that they live with, or other dogs. And there's a range. Some dogs just really thrive by connecting with other dogs. And other dogs are like, oh, that was fun, but I want to go back with my person now. So that's really important for us to become aware of our dog's natural temperament and style when it comes to introversion and extroversion. So
don't let our desire for them to be around a bunch of dogs force them into a position where they're uncomfortable.
Exactly right. You know, like we all, you know, maybe we've been told, oh, you know, your dog should play with other dogs, or dogs need other dogs. And some dogs, it's really, really true. You put them with a group of dogs and they're going to just thrive and really reset their whole nervous system. But other dogs, that's not so much fun. And also it's dog specific. So even in the play group, I mean, we will have the dogs all get rated for their play styles. And one of the notes in the rating is dog specific, meaning this dog likes that dog, but not the other dog, or whatever it is. So dogs can be socially selective. There are some dogs that are just everything is fine, and other dogs, nothing is fine. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean it isn't changeable, but it's changeable with a lot of careful work, like we're doing with our little purple dot, not our big purple dot dog, because she's 56 pounds. She's bigger than our other two dogs. So she's the big one in the room.
Yeah,
But
she's bigger than the two of them put together.
She is, yeah. But today we had a lovely little meditation, all three dogs in a little room because there was work being done on the house. And so we went into a room where we could close the door. And it was like, wow, okay, all three dogs are here and they're doing just fine. They were happy as clams, So yeah, it's coming along.
Love that. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah.
What else we got?
Well, I could tell you about bonobos.
Yeah. I wanted to hear about that.
Yeah, so bonobos, you don't see them in zoos because they like to make love all the time. So they can't put them on display. But they are a form of chimpanzees, and they use sensual contact as a way of solving all problems. So like if there's a conflict in the room, in the group, how are we going to solve it? Well, let's be sensual. Let's have sex. So they use this as their method of one of their methods of creating harmony in the group. So I just think that's really, really a fun story. And they are our closest genetic relatives. Like we have like a 98 or 99% genetic match to bonobos. So they're our closest genetic relatives. So yeah, so if you ever wondered if sex could solve problems, I think it can.
You've heard of makeup sex, right?
Right, exactly. So the bonobos do makeup sex over nothing, like a little squabble over food. Okay, feelings get hurt. Okay, let's have some sex and everything will be fine.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, right. Awesome. So I think that's a great note to leave people on is you can learn more about bonobos and you can see some wonderful videos on YouTube. And next episode, it's one of my favorite concepts is the concept in the human animal connection. We talk about towards and away. So both in animals and in humans. So I hope you'll be with us for that one.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Aloha.
Aloha for now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Human Animal Connection Show. Please visit our website, thehumananimalconnection.org. There you can sign up for our free email newsletter, book a consultation, or check out our blogs and resources. Our best-selling book, The Human Animal Connection, is available on Amazon, and your donation of any amount keeps our nonprofit organization providing life-changing services. You can reach Michael Overly, author of Let Your Dog Lead, Musings on How to Create an Exceptional Life, on his website at dogsandmen.com or email michael@dogsandmen.com.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.